What if the oceans never stopped rising? No asteroid, no alien invasion, just the planet, quietly drowning itself. It begins so slowly you wouldn't even notice. Summers grow longer, forests burn brighter, rivers dry up, and storms form where they never used to. Then one day, the world's oldest glaciers begin to die. From Greenland to Antarctica, the great white shields of our planet collapse into the sea. At first, it's inches, then feet, then entire coastlines vanish. Miami disappears, London follows, New York drowns beneath waves that reach the height of skyscrapers. The Maldives and the Bahamas become stories. Parents tell their children places that used to exist. Sea levels climb 70 meters. That's enough to erase 1/3 of all land on Earth. Over 2 billion people have nowhere to run. Nations crumble. Maps become meaningless. And yet, this isn't the end, it's only the beginning. Because as the ice melts, pressure builds beneath the oceans. Volcanoes awaken, Earth's crust cracks. What comes next isn't just a flood, it's the planet remaking itself. From space, Earth still looks beautiful, deep blue, glowing, peaceful. But down here, under the endless water, peace is the last thing left. It begins with heat. Not the kind that makes you sweat, the kind that changes the planet's pulse. The average global temperature climbs by just a few degrees. But that's all it takes. Every extra degree acts like a slow knife, slicing into the frozen armor of Earth. In Greenland, ice sheets the size of continents fracture like glass. Rivers of meltwater carve through white plains that have stayed frozen for millions of years. In Antarctica, ice shelves the size of countries collapse into the sea, one after another, each creating a wave that circles the globe. What once reflected sunlight now absorbs it. White turns to blue. Blue turns to black. And the planet's cooling system switches to overdrive in reverse. Within a few decades, the oceans have swallowed the world's memory of its own shape. Florida disappears first, then Bangladesh, then half of Vietnam's coast. Venice becomes a rumor, London, Shanghai, and New York falls silent beneath brown water. The Eiffel Tower becomes an island. Tokyo becomes a reef. The sea level doesn't just rise, it surges. 70 meters higher than before. That's 230 feet. Imagine stacking 20-story buildings just to see the new shoreline. Every mountain valley turns into a bay. Every plain becomes a seabed. Billions are displaced. Coastal cities become refugee fleets drifting in search of higher ground. Airports vanish. Power plants drown. Saltwater eats into farmland, poisoning what little soil remains. Crops rot. Animals starve. And humans, for the first time in millennia, are pushed back inland, fighting over patches of dry earth like frightened animals. Satellite images show at best the continents shrink. The oceans expand. And for the first time since the age of dinosaurs, Earth begins to look almost spherical again. No jagged edges. No land masses cutting across the blue. From space, it's beautiful. From the ground, it's the end. In the tropics, the air turns thick with humidity, storms forming faster and larger than any in recorded history. Each one carries the energy of 100 nuclear bombs, striking whatever remains of civilization with waves taller than skyscrapers. Cities that somehow survived the flood are crushed by the sky instead. The survivors flee to higher ground, the Himalayas, the Andes, the Rockies, any peak that can still rise above the ocean. Governments try to coordinate evacuations, but there are no governments left. Not really. There's no electricity to send messages, no satellites to guide them, no maps that still make sense. The borders of nations dissolve as fast as the ice that once defined them. And yet, even now, the water keeps climbing. The ocean is a patient predator. It doesn't rush. It takes what it wants, inch by inch, wave by wave, until the land itself seems to sigh and sink beneath the weight. One morning, you wake to find the sea lapping at your doorstep. A week later, it covers your roof. A month later, your entire city is gone, replaced by the silence of the deep. Fish swim through office towers. Coral grows on what used to be highways. The only sound is the wind over endless water, the sound of a planet erasing its own history. And while the world drowns, a strange truth emerges: this isn't nature's revenge. It's balance. For millions of years, Earth has known how to correct its fever. Ice melts, oceans rise, heat spreads, species vanish. Then the planet resets. It doesn't hate us. It just doesn't need us. At first, people thought they could adapt. They built floating barriers, storm shelters, and desalination plants for a few weeks. It almost worked. Governments broadcast messages of hope, promising control, promising order. But the sea didn't care. The sea kept rising. Then the lights began to die. Power stations flooded, circuits shorted, and cities went dark one by one. Without electricity, water pumps stopped, communication networks failed, and panic spread faster than the tide itself. You can't reason with an ocean. You can only run from it. In the chaos that followed, borders became meaningless. Entire nations vanished under water overnight. Planes circled endlessly with nowhere to land. Ships overloaded with refugees drifted for weeks before sinking in storms that had no names. Satellites captured ghostly images of once great cities now glowing faintly beneath the waves. Those who reached higher ground faced a different kind of disaster. Food ran out. Medicine disappeared. Governments collapsed under their own weight. The lucky ones found old bunkers, radio towers, or mountain resorts and turned them into fortresses. The unlucky ones fought outside their gates. In the beginning, people still tried to help each other. Rescue missions, supply drops, volunteer fleets, tiny sparks of humanity against an endless horizon of water. But compassion doesn't float forever. When hunger comes, kindness sinks first. On what's left of the Himalayas, small communities of survivors carve shelters into the rock. They trade salt, dried seaweed, and rainwater filtered through makeshift tarps. Every morning, they watch the ocean climb a little higher. Below them, the last forests rot in salt water. Above them, the clouds turn gray with ash and soot, the remains of the cities burning beneath the waves. Somewhere in the Andes, an entire government has relocated to a mountaintop monastery. Their soldiers wear diving suits instead of uniforms, and their currency is fuel and canned food. They speak in whispers about rebuilding civilization. But their radio transmissions grow weaker every day. The sea has cut humanity into islands not of geography, but of fear. Each pocket of survivors believes they're the last ones alive. The age of nations has ended. The age of isolation has begun. In the ruins of what was once Tokyo, only the highest towers break the surface. Their upper floors have become floating shelters for hundreds of survivors. They scavenge the ocean below for anything useful: plastic, metal, wood, and lash them into rafts that drift between the rooftops. From above, it looks like a city reborn. From within, it smells like rot and salt and human despair. Elsewhere, the rich flee farther out to sea, living in floating palaces powered by what remains of solar grids and nuclear cores. They have food, clean air, and silence, but they have no land to return to. The horizon around them is empty, infinite, and cold. In time, even the idea of tomorrow begins to fade. With no seasons, no farms, no calendars, the days blend into one long twilight. The human world collapses not in one great explosion, but in a series of quiet failures: one power grid, one dam, one promise at a time. And through it all, the ocean keeps rising. It fills every valley, drowns every city, and spreads across the continents like a living creature reclaiming its body. When the last power plant flickers out, darkness covers the planet completely for the first time in centuries. From orbit, Earth glows only with lightning bright, brief and angry. This is the night the human world truly ends. Not with fire, not with war, but with water, swallowing everything we ever built. When the world flooded, most people thought the worst had passed, but they were wrong. The ocean wasn't finished, it was only getting heavier. As billions of tons of water pressed down on the planet's crust, the Earth began to groan. The extra weight bent tectonic plates, squeezing molten rock trapped below. Pressure built beneath every ocean floor, from the Pacific trenches to the frozen Arctic basin, and one by one, the volcanoes awoke. At first, it was just smoke-thin plumes rising through miles of dark water, harmless and slow. Then came the heat. Magma met seawater, turning entire regions of the ocean into boiling cauldrons. Steam exploded from the depths with the force of nuclear blasts. Earthquakes followed first in the Pacific, then everywhere. 8-point tremors rippled through the seafloor, shaking what little land remained. Underwater cameras, the few that still worked, captured the impossible red fire erupting through black water, glowing like veins under the skin of a dying world. In some places, the ocean itself seemed to burn. Each eruption unleashed more than fire. It released water trapped deep within the mantle ancient, compressed, and waiting. Scientists had always suspected that Earth's crust held hidden oceans below the surface. Now those oceans were rising to join the one above. It was as if the planet had decided to flood itself from the inside out. Within months, sea levels climbed even higher. Entire mountain ranges vanished. The last visible peaks of the Andes, the Alps, and the Rockies disappeared beneath the waves. What had once been continents became memories, and Earth's blue deepened to a darker, colder shade. Then came the tsunami's waves taller than skyscrapers, moving faster than jetliners. They circled the planet endlessly, crashing into what remained of human settlements on the highest ridges. Each one erased another fragment of civilization: the temples in Nepal, the radio towers in Chile, the monasteries on Tibetan cliffs. The survivors called them the reclaimers. The ocean called them home. Storms raged without pause, without land to break them. They circled the globe endlessly, feeding on their own power. Rain fell for months, a curtain of gray that never lifted. The atmosphere itself began to change, thick with vapor, heavy with salt. Lightning storms stitched across the sky, striking the surface of the ocean like veins of living electricity from space. The transformation was complete. Earth no longer looked like the planet of humans. The continents were gone. The polar caps had melted into memory. The blue sphere that once carried life now shimmered with violent beauty, a world of endless storms and volcanic fire beneath the waves. Down below, in the depths, strange things happened. Lava met ice-cold water, birthing new land for a moment before the waves consumed it again. Hydrothermal vents spewed minerals into the deep, glowing like alien cities. Around them, life began to stir, tiny organisms born from heat and chemical chaos. The irony was almost poetic. While the surface burned and drowned, new life was already starting in the dark. But for humanity, there was nothing left to start over with. The few that had climbed to the tallest mountains now lived on islands barely wide enough for a dozen tents. Every storm tore away a little more of their world. They could see the ocean glowing at night from the heat of underwater volcanoes, an eerie reminder that Earth was alive. And they were not. Some whispered that the planet was cleansing itself, undoing the damage done by centuries of greed and carelessness. Others stopped whispering altogether. They just watched the horizon, a horizon that never stood still, and waited. Because when the Earth strikes back, it doesn't roar, it rises. When the storms finally begin to fade, silence returns. A heavy, endless silence broken only by the sound of water. The world is unrecognizable. There are no cities, no continents, no borders, just blue, from pole to pole. The ocean stretches without end, wrapping the planet in a mirror that reflects nothing but clouds. The few survivors cling to what's left of the mountains, the last scars of land poking through the waves. From above, they look like islands. From below, they look like memories. Humanity has been reduced to clusters of a few hundred people scattered across the peaks of the Himalayas, the Andes, and the remnants of Africa's high plateaus. Every day is a negotiation with the sea. They collect rainwater, build rafts from wreckage, and fish with nets made from the wires of drowned cities. The air tastes of salt and decay. At night, when lightning flashes across the horizon, the ocean glows faintly from the heat of the volcanoes below, as if the planet itself is breathing fire beneath its watery skin. Down in the depths, the story isn't calmer. The ocean has changed. The massive surge of carbon dioxide from volcanoes and dead life dissolves into the water, turning it acidic. The pH drops fast, too fast. The first to die are the smallest plankton: coral, shellfish, creatures that built the foundation of the food chain. Without them, the sea becomes a graveyard. Whales starve, sharks vanish, schools of fish scatter and disappear. The ocean that once fed billions now holds only silence. When the waves settle, their foam carries the bones of 1,000 species fossils before their time. And above it all, humanity hangs on, thin and desperate. The air grows heavy with humidity. The days blur into gray. There are no seasons anymore, only rain. Generations born after the flood have never seen land beyond the horizon. For them, Earth has always been water. They tell stories of cities and forests as myths, passed down in songs and drawings etched on metal scraps. The last fragments of civilization float on the surface, barges made from the skeletons of ships. Tied together into fragile communities, they drift endlessly, searching for anything solid to anchor to. Food comes from algae farms and deep-sea scavenging. Fresh water from condensation systems powered by wind. Every invention is a prayer. Yet, even in this world of ruin, nature finds new ways to adapt. In the depths, near volcanic vents, new forms of bacteria thrive in the heat, feeding on chemicals rather than sunlight. Some species of fish evolve to survive in acid waters, their scales thicker, their colors duller. Evolution begins again, not in sunlight but in darkness. And so does humanity. The people who remain on the floating colonies begin to change not in centuries, but in generations. Some are born with larger lungs, others with denser bones, stronger eyesight underwater. Scientists once wrote about the Bajau people of Indonesia, whose bodies had already adapted for deep diving. Now, those traits are the key to survival. The line between human and aquatic begins to blur, but adaptation doesn't erase suffering. Children die from malnutrition. Diseases spread through the humid air. Conflict erupts over what little remains fuel. Salt, food, governments are gone, replaced by survival codes whispered from raft to raft. The world has no capital, no king, no god, only current and tide. Only 2 years after the last land sank, 90% of life on Earth is gone. The ocean has become both cradle and coffin. From space, the planet glows like a sapphire, beautiful, silent, alive only in color. And somewhere within that endless blue, a handful of human voices remain, scattered like bubbles rising toward the surface, fragile, temporary, and fading. Earth has become a water world, but it's not the paradise we imagined. It's the reminder of what happens when balance is lost, when a planet decides to start over. From space, the Earth still looks beautiful, a perfect sphere of blue and white, calm and endless. But beauty can be deceiving. The oceans that once sustained life have taken everything back. What's left is balance, cold and precise, stripped of every trace of human ambition. If this world ever truly existed, it wouldn't be an act of punishment, it would be correction. The planet doesn't rage, doesn't mourn, it simply resets. And maybe that's what makes it terrifying. Because the question isn't whether Earth could become a water world, it's whether we'll let it happen while pretending it's still far away. The ice is melting, the tides are rising, and every summer that feels a little too hot is the beginning of this story. So before we drown in our own reflection, maybe we should look at this blue planet one last time and remember that it's not water that will destroy us, it's our disbelief that it could.